For this, the mayor comes to our YouTube channel, and with that, following the order.
Your mic's up.
And hand the gavel over to City Council President.
Great. Just to note, Kim is out tonight, so she sent a message. She's got some school kids stuff to do. So with that, let's move on. I'd like to welcome Tammy Dunn, Snohomish County Sports Commission for presentation.
I'm going to assume this is on. So, Mayor Gailey, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm like to tell you a little bit about sports tourism in Snohomish County. I'm going to do a national level, tell you a little bit about who we are, and then also about the sporting events that are happening in the city of Lake Stevens, and then show a video and then talk a little bit about our Sports Hall of Fame that we put on. Next, please. The impact of tourism is the reason, or let me back up on the impact of tourism and why is it important to a city. Travelers travel to a city, stay in the accommodations, they spend money in the restaurants and the attractions and grocery stores. The money is spent by the travelers. It increases the business sales and wages for the staff, and then also taxes to the city collects. Next, please. Sports tourism on a national level is integral in local and national economies. Sports tourism is a driver of U.S. economy, and this is a national study from Sports Events and Tourism Association, the State of Industry for 2023. And sports-related travel spending was $52.2 billion. Total economic impact is $128 billion. Total jobs generated is almost 760,000. Nationally, this is full-time and part-time. Total tax revenues is $20 billion. And then one of the things that they captured in this study was the total room nights is $73.5 million. And this is nationally across the United States. Next, please. So who are we? Who is the Snohomish County Sports Commission? We're a sports destination management organization to do sports tourism for Snohomish County. Since 2020, we've been a standalone sports commission. Previously to that, for 14 years, we were a division of the Snohomish County Tourism Bureau. So we still function like we normally do. We just have a board of directors. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but we're still tasked with bringing sporting events to Snohomish County. Next slide, please. I always like to say what our vision statement is to become the premier destination in the region for sports, enriching the community and increasing economic vitality through sports. So how do we do that? We do that by working with our local, regional, and national sports event organizations, bringing in sporting events such as Lake Stevens Triathlon, or even the U.S. Australian Football League, Western Regionals, or an international event like Skate America. We're bringing these events in, we're bringing visitors in locally and nationally or regionally. They stay in our hotels. And then we also promote Snohomish County as a premier sports destination. We promote Payne Field, International Airport, local businesses, and with the light rail coming into Linwood, we're also promoting that as well. But we promote the whole county as a whole rather than just one particular city. We always say sports is community and community is sports. The two go hand in hand. Sports provides a quality of life for our residents because they can participate in those sporting events. And it also encourages the youth as well as the adults to be active and live a healthy, active lifestyle. Also the health and well-being as well for our community. And that's what sports brings. We also assist with local sports organizations with their own tournaments. We work a lot with like Snohomish Youth Soccer. We also work with Perfect Northwest Baseball, which is also local event organizers. And then we also advocate for local sports facility development. And how we do that is we can help, we'll write a letter of support for the parks departments if they're applying grants for the Youth Athletic Fund or the RCO grants. And those grants can be for playground equipment, and we'll still support that because that's still that active, healthy lifestyle. Next slide, please. Just to recognize, we are members of national organizations, Sports Events and Tourism, Esports Trade Association, which is e-gaming and esports, and then also the Destinations International, and that is a national organization that a lot of the convention and visitor bureaus are part of. Next slide, please. So what's the impact of sports tourism in Snohomish County? I have about 6 years here. In 2018, I like to say we were rocking and rolling. I think we were over $35 million in economic impact in 2018, 2019, and then COVID hit, the pandemic. We were able to recover pretty good in 2021. Most of those events were all outdoors. We're well known for our outdoor events. And then in 2022, 23, we were able to bring back most of those. And in 23, we had 30 million, close to $30 million in economic impact. In 2024, we are just, I think we're close to about $23 million in economic impact for the events that we're made definite this year. And most of those are for this year as well. We also track total visitors. It's another metric. Again, we had over 200,000 people in 2018, and we're slowly coming back after the pandemic. We had about 143,000 people countywide in 22 and 23, and then in 24, we're about 132,000 people coming in for the sporting events. Next slide, please. Just a snapshot of some of the events that we hosted in 23. We had Spartan Race Trifecta. This is a photo of the U.S. Australian Football League Western Regionals that was hosted at the Lake Stevens Community Park. And we've had Lake Stevens Triathlon and then many more as well. Next slide, please. I also like to break it down into districts. I know Lake Stevens sometimes can be District 1, District 5. I have a tendency to lump Lake Stevens in with District 5. And it just kind of showcases the economic impact and the total visitors for this district as well. And we do that for all of the districts, and it tells us where the events are happening. In 2018, in District 5, we had $18.7 million in economic impact. 2003 was $15.2 million, and in 2024, we're already at $24 million of economic impact. As you can see that visitors for 2024 is just over 66,000 people just in the District 5, which is Monroe, Snohomish, Lake Stevens, and then Sky Valley. Next slide, please. City of Lake Stevens sports. You guys do have some sports. A lot of it is around the water, which is fantastic. It's an opportunity for us to promote Lake Stevens and a great venue. Lake Stevens, the water is a great venue and a great city to have these events. Next slide. Lake Stevens in 2023 and 24, we really kind of jumped up after the pandemic. We work with Lake Stevens Regatta, Lake Stevens Pickleball Classic that's been going on for about 3 years. I think this year will be the 4th. Last year we had the U.S. Australian Football League as well. So we're over, I jumped ahead. Economic impact in 2014, we're already at over $300,000, and the visitors for 2024 is almost 1,900 coming into the city with the sporting events that the city hosts. And then there's also the Lake Stevens Triathlon as well. In 2024, go ahead to the next slide. Yep, I jumped ahead. Just a sample of the events in Lake Stevens that are hosted. And again, these are national or annual events, and we work with all of these local event directors. And the Australian Football League, that is the first time that we've ever hosted Australian football. And we're working on bringing it back in 2026, which would be at Lake Stevens Community Park, because it's the perfect venue for it, for that tournament. Next slide, please. 2024, we've got the Lake Stevens Regatta, which happened already. We're working with the local event director for the Pickleball Classic and then the triathlon in September. And then I just reached out to you today through Council Member Doherty with the group that's doing the Everett or the 3-on-3 during the Aquafest. Reached out to them because I know it's going to be at Lake Stevens at the end of July, and they've got a couple other ones. And so even though they're local, we want to help promote that. So what that does is us being involved, we can bring more people to the city of Lake Stevens. They can come to the Aquafest, and then they get to know more about the city and then also want to come back. So that's one of the reasons why we like to work with the local people that bring on tournaments. Next slide, please. Go ahead to the next one. Nope. And then we can't do what we do without our local community partners. And our community partners are our city and county parks and recreation, our local businesses, our sports organizations, Economic Alliance, Snohomish County, all of our Chamber of Commerce, our colleges, our school districts, hotels and restaurants, even our residents, like we say, because we're just the go-between to bring people here and bring event organizers and then tell people the story of why they should come to Snohomish County, what they can do, what they can recreate, spend their money, and then wanting to come back again and again at a different time or at the same tournament the next year. Next slide, please. Last thing is we put on a Hall of Fame. If you're ever at the Angel of the Winds Arena and you're watching a hockey game, you'll see some display cases, you'll see a touchscreen, and then you'll also see a wall mural. We started a Hall of Fame back in 2010, and every September we honor a new induction class. So we've been inducted quite a few from the Lake Stevens High School, Marv Harshman, Linda Goodrich as coaches, and Gina Carbano just this last year as went to Lake Stevens High School. We also honor high school athletes, collegiate athletes, and Herald Men and Women of the Year. So it's one of the things that we do and being part of the community. And I like to say giving back and being really being part of the community and telling the rich history of sports. And then the last thing that I have, go ahead to the next, is that we work with a huge production, and they're a local company out of Arlington to produce our brand videos. And they did a lot of work on some brand videos for us so that we can continue to promote Snohomish County. And this is just one of their videos. And it's a couple of, it's about 45 seconds. So. And the sound probably won't work.
Yeah, sorry.
And that's okay.
Okay.
Yep. And all of our videos are also on our channel, our YouTube channel, so that people can see the what we have. I know in one of the videos we promote Lake Stevens Regatta with the rowing in that.
Does anyone have any questions?
Tammy, what was the reason for this, for the jump in visitor numbers 22 and 23? Is that the Pickleball Classic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's when the Pickleball Classic, I think it's Pickleball Classic started in 21. Also, the regatta came back because of restrictions with the state, with the pandemic and what can be done and cannot. We worked with a lot of like Lake Stevens Rowing, and they chose not to host it. And so 22 is when we were able to bring everything back. Same one with 23. And then the triathlon as well. Because I know that's been going on for at least 10 years.
Quick question,
Yes.
maybe you covered this, but the Tourism Bureau where the
Mhm.
hotel tax goes, are you funded by that?
Yes, so we're actually funded by what's called the tourism promotion area. So that is the dollar assessment that the hoteliers have done. So this is separate from the county hotel motel tax. I used to work for the Tourism Bureau, so I'm very familiar with the Tourism Bureau being funded out of the county LTAC fund. I always called it the large fund. And in order to do more sports, when the hoteliers enacted the TPA back in 2011, that is where all of the sports, more of the sports funding came from. And then in 2018, we advocated to the tourism promotion area, the board of director, or the board for the sports commission to be fully funded out of the TPA. So we've been fully funded out of the TPA since 2018. And then with changes in 2019, we were already a nonprofit. So the Tourism Bureau board at that time approved for us to break away. So we are a unique situation where Spokane is standalone, Seattle is standalone, and so are we. I like to say we're unique because we're a small to mid-sized market, and we're not like Seattle, which draws in those big professional events. We are really participant-based, youth, amateur, and that's what really drives our numbers, and that's who we are.
Yeah, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tammy, we used to get the Iron Man here and stuff. Have we
Yes.
made any efforts to try to get an Iron Man back here?
You know, I've stayed in touch with some of them. I know Keegan was the last race director, and they've changed their models so much because they're striving for bigger numbers than the ones that were here. And I think also looking at costs, I do know that when they were here, it was very costly being out on the county roads. And so they always try to navigate that. But it's something that we can always search and to see if there's an interest. I do know that I believe they have the contract with Tri-Cities for a couple of years, and they were in Maple Valley. So I think they look at where does it cut the costs and draw the most people.
Because we used to have the race director out of Florida,
Mhm.
and that was the first year we brought it here, and there were some sponsorships and stuff that goes along with that. But he said it was extremely profitable for him when he did it.
Yeah, and then I remember that gentleman, and then the World Triathlon Corporation took it over.
Right.
And then the person that was running it, the CEO at that time, when Lake Stevens had it, he is actually since retired, and so they've kind of changed hands. I do know the pandemic has kind of changed how some of these bigger events, such as even like Spartan Race, they're looking, I mean, Spartan Races actually cut down the number of races that are in this region so that they can draw more to one. And so I know that Ironman probably looks at that as well, just because costs are they're different than they were 10 years ago.
And when you say you promote things like the regatta and the pickleball tournament, what things are you doing to promote? What things are you guys doing to promote? Because I was part of the pickleball tournament, still am.
Yep.
Putting it on and so forth. And I was just wondering what things are you guys doing to help make these events more successful?
Right. What we're trying to do is being able to promote social media, trying to get onto the schedule of social media. I know that our events coordinator is working with Pablo to find more prizes to bring more of those individuals. And so what we're trying to do with our social media so that we're not bombarded every day with events, we're trying to space that out to be able to promote pickleball through the Instagram and through the social media. We have it on our website. And then just trying to, when we go locally, we talk to people, we let people know what's happening, particularly. I know pickleball is still big. It's just trying to find probably the grassroots efforts because our marketing dollars go a lot to bringing those events organizers in. But then just for us being able to pay attention to the pickleball. And so those are things that we're still kind of trying to grow. Because of the pandemic, we cut our staff and we're now back to normal staff of 4. And one of them is a marketing specialist. So it's probably not the best answer, but I know we strive to try to reach everybody and really try to promote, how do we help promote these different events and grow them, because we want them to stay.
Okay, great, Tammy. I appreciate your time and appreciate you coming to Lake Stevens. So
Thank you.
thank you for your
time.
information.
You bet.
Great, thank you. Moving along here, private stormwater facility data review. Shannon? You want to take it from there, or you want to step up the podium, or whatever
What would be preferred? Do you,
whatever's easiest for you.
I'll sit here if that's okay. I've got my dual screens going.
Take it away.
Okay. Let's see, am I sharing? Let me just swap. Okay. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm going to present to you the additional information on private stormwater facilities. About a month ago, I brought a presentation to council that reviewed the need for a new rate study for our stormwater utility fees. And in that presentation, we discussed several levels of service. And one of those levels of service was maintaining private stormwater facilities. There was a need for additional information to be able to make some decisions or provide guidance on how we should analyze this level of service. And so that's what I brought to you tonight. What we're seeking is just guidance on the preference on how to increase our rates to account for the level of service 2, which is maintenance of private stormwater facilities, if council decides to go with that level of service. I'm just going to do a quick recap of the previous presentation. Let's make sure we all understand why it's important that we look at private stormwater facility maintenance, and just give an overview of what private stormwater facilities are out there, their current maintenance requirements, and then some different scenarios that we can look at if we're going to take over the maintenance of this and have city perform that maintenance, and what would that look like for our rates. And so just real quick, a rate study, this is how we determine how much is paid towards our stormwater utility fees. The last rate study was done in 2018. Our current fee schedule ends at the end of this year. And so we're looking at developing updated rates for a time period of 3 years between 2025 and 2027. And that's what we're doing with the rate study this year. The city operates on what's called an equivalent service unit model. And this is going to be important for tonight's conversation too. So I want to just kind of go over on what exactly this means. And I have a picture down here if everyone can see. The equivalent service unit is, it identifies an average amount of impervious surface, and it looks at it per residential. And so for our city, what was determined in the 2018 study is that there's an average of 3,000 square feet of impervious surface per one single family residential parcel. And so we use that metric of 3,000 square feet. All single family is charged 1 ESU. And so in this picture down here, you can see there's an example of a single family residence that has 2,800 square feet of impervious surface. It's still charged 1 ESU. We have another single family that's 3,400 square feet of impervious surface. It's still charged 1 ESU. It's just blanket across the board, single family residence is 1 ESU. We don't start charging based on the actual amount of impervious surface until you get to commercial properties, multifamily residence with 6 or more units. And when you get to those, we have to calculate how much impervious surface is on that parcel, and we divide it by 3,000 square feet. That's the equivalent of 1 ESU. And then that determines how many ESUs you pay. So for example, in this example here, this commercial property has 12,000 square feet of impervious surface, which equates to 4 ESUs. So that commercial parcel pays 4 times the ESU rate. Right now, our ESU rate is $265 a year. So that commercial property pays 4 times $265. So I just want to make that clear because when we start talking about rate increases and we start talking about the impact to commercial and residential, it's important to recognize how we evaluate each of those. As I mentioned previously, we talked about 4 different levels of service. At our council workshop about a month ago, we identified the need to move forward with analyzing the 3 levels of service. Tonight, we're just going to be talking about level of service 2, which is the private facility maintenance. The challenge we're really faced with private stormwater facilities is that all of the stormwater facilities here in our city contribute to the entire system. The stormwater facilities, when these developments are built, manage flow control and treatment of stormwater. When they're not maintained properly, it impacts our entire system. When the challenges we really find is particularly with residential developments, we have large stormwater ponds or vaults or detention pipes and associated stormwater treatment that's really left up to the hands of citizens, residents to manage and to understand how to manage it. And in the absence of a homeowners association, it makes it even more challenging. When we find deficiencies in these facilities, it's a process of maybe sending a letter to all 50 homeowners or 30 homeowners and saying, okay, you own 1/50th of this stormwater facility, you need to maintain your fair share. And it really does, it poses quite a challenge, and we've only minorly been successful to try to bring some of these into compliance, but it's also taken a lot of staff time, a lot of conversations, and then really it just comes down to that, citizens they're not unified as a subdivision to really pull the funds together or have the means to do it or understand what they need to do. So that's really the problem we're trying to solve when we talk about why is it important to maintain these. And as I mentioned before, it's important because this is our entire system. 75% of our city drains to our lake. And then we have a couple other watersheds that are just depicted here, but everything that happens here in the city, it drains to our lake, it drains to our rivers, it drains to our wetlands. And so the maintenance of these facilities is important. So just to give you some context, that we have about 378 facilities total in the city. And when I talk about facilities, that's anything that's a treatment that performs treatment on stormwater or detention. And so that's for flood mitigation, making sure that we're not, concentrating water because we've added more impervious surface. So the detention holds the water and releases it at the rate that the natural environment would have released the water if you didn't have impervious surface. Of that, there's approximately 245 that are privately owned, about 78 commercial facilities and 167 residential facilities. The city only owns and maintains 129 facilities. There's a couple facilities that are still within the Snohomish County jurisdiction. That's the transit center and the skate park. So we also looked at HOAs. It's a little bit challenging sometimes to understand which residential subdivisions have HOAs and which don't. But what we've been able to find is it appears that the majority of them still have an intact HOA. About 17% don't have an HOA and 16% are unknown. So collectively 33%. It's been our experience that it's really the ones without an HOA that it does pose a challenge, but we've also run into situations with really small, older subdivisions that have deferred maintenance on their private stormwater facilities. And they also even with an intact HOA, it's still a struggle to maintain them just because of the size of them and the level of maintenance that's needed. We did inspections in 2023. Our surface water field technician went out and inspected all of the private facilities. Based on those inspections, about 146 of the 167 private residential facilities require some level of maintenance. And it's really important to note that that level of maintenance can vary drastically. Some of them, we have a couple stormwater facilities that kind of need to be totally rebuilt. And then we have a couple that just need maybe some vegetation work in their pond. This does not break that down. It would be pretty labor intensive to actually pull that data out. We're still working with our processes in ViewWorks to be able to extract data like that. But just to give you some context, the majority of them need some level of maintenance, where about half of the commercial facilities need some level of maintenance. We evaluated the cost of what that maintenance looks like. The way we did this is we went through each of the inspection reports and identified the level of maintenance per the facility. We then looked at comparable work orders that our city crews have done and evaluated total labor time on those work orders, and then compared it to the private facilities and the work that needs to be done with them to come up with some sort of cost. And then we did apply a 20% administrative cost on top of that. And that would just be for contacting the homeowners, working with them if we needed to hire a contractor for tree removal, because the baseline cost just looked at city crew labor hours. With that, you can see there's about an average cost per facility of $7,200 for the residential and about $2,000 for commercial, and cumulatively about $1.3 million to bring them all into compliance. So this is where we start looking at how could we maintain this. As I mentioned before, we are proposing to look at rate increases for the next 3 years, starting in 2025, 26, and 27. This proposal that I have here with these different scenarios, it really looks at taking the 3 years and breaking up all of these private facilities over the 3 years to bring them all into the up to maintenance standards. So it wouldn't be to try to tackle them all in 1 year, it would be over a 3-year period. It would involve hiring additional employees. The first scenario looks at the city maintains all private stormwater facilities, residential and commercial. In total, the city has about 20,792 ESUs. And to achieve maintenance of all of these facilities over a 3-year period, and hiring 4 maintenance employees with associated vehicle and tools needed, it would be a rate increase of about $44 per ESU. And so that would be a rate increase for everybody. So remember, residential would just be paying $44 more a year. Commercial would be paying 44 times however many ESUs they have per year. And then just to keep in mind, we're just looking at level of service 2 right now. So we haven't factored in the level of service 1, which is just our standard, kind of our current rate with inflation costs. And we haven't looked at capital projects yet. So this would be specific to level of service 2. The second scenario is that the city would only maintain the private residential stormwater facilities. And so that would, we looked at how many ESUs are associated with single family, and that's about 13,525. And it would essentially split the rate between single family and commercial. This would require legal review, the feasibility of it. We think it is feasible as long as we describe why there's a split in the ESU rate. So commercial facilities would pay one ESU rate and residential would pay another ESU rate, and you would provide the maintenance for residential. The reason behind this, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the next slide, is a lot of the commercial facilities are already doing their maintenance. I mean, we look at the school district as one of our bigger commercial entities. They already do all the maintenance of their private stormwater ponds. We have other commercial facilities in our industrial area that operate under separate NPDES permits that already do the maintenance. And it's a lot easier to work with commercial facilities to actually gain compliance. So that would be an option. The other option would be to move forward with essentially scenario 1 and maintain all of the stormwater facilities, but then offer some sort of credit program. And that would be able to give some incentive to commercial facilities that are already maintaining it, or maybe homeowners associations that already have a maintenance plan in place and that are already maintaining it. Their rates are already set for their residents. They could apply for a credit, and the credit would be somewhat equivalent to what it would cost us to then maintain it. There's a couple other jurisdictions that do credits. Primarily, they do it around school district providing education and outreach to meet permit compliance, but that option is definitely out there to look at. Another option that we just wanted to kind of throw out there is offering maybe some sort of grant assistant program. It would still look at like a rate increase. But it would provide essentially a pool of money that we could have commercial developers, homeowners associations, non-homeowners associations apply for it and get some financial assistance. So they would still be paying for it with an increased rate, but it would essentially provide money to those that would need it. This wouldn't require the need to hire any maintenance staff, but we would probably need to hire one person to manage it if that program got large enough. And so if we look at all of them compared with each other, maintaining all of the private stormwater facilities, it ensures that we're able to bring it all to maintenance standards. Our city crews or contractors are able to maintain them. It does result in a higher rate increase. If we just maintain the private residential stormwater facilities, the rate does not increase exponentially for those commercial facilities that are already maintaining their stormwater facilities. It would still mean that we're dependent on commercial property owners to maintain their stormwater facilities, but it's been our experience that we haven't had the majority of challenges with that. And it would just need some legal review to look at implementing a split ESU charge. A credit program, as I mentioned before, the benefit there is it would give back to those that are already doing the work. We would just need to administer the credit program, and then there's an option too of some sort of grant assistance. The challenge though is it doesn't solve the problem of actually bringing these stormwater facilities into compliance. It provides the assistance when we go out and do the technical outreach and education and outreach to let homeowners know that you do need to bring it into compliance and here's some financial assistance, but it doesn't eliminate the need of trying to correspond with them, get a hold of people, explain it and move on from there. Just to give you a little bit of a comparison, the city of Marysville, they do maintain all residential stormwater facilities, and they do that for the newer ones, 2007 and newer. Snohomish County has a program where they also perform the maintenance on residential facilities as funds are available. So they just budget each year and they do as many facilities as they can. Monroe also does single family residential. They do not do commercial. Mukilteo just recently did a rate study. They're increasing their rates to $349.56 per year, starting in June of this year. They do not do any maintenance of private stormwater facilities, but it's something that they want to look at moving forward. They're going to wait and see how it goes for us first. And just this is the slide I showed last time. I just wanted to update you that Mukilteo recently raised their rates. So all in all, these rate increases that I presented tonight, it would be for a 3-year period. It would be to bring all those private stormwater facilities up to the current maintenance standard. It would be to build this program out. Likely, once we get every facility up into meeting the current standards, our annual maintenance costs would hopefully go down because we wouldn't have a lot of that upfront cost with some of the facilities that need a lot of work. And then we could do another rate study in 2027 when our current rates would then be outdated and evaluate the current maintenance needs at that time. So the other recommendation is right now the face of the plat on all private residential developments states that the stormwater facilities are dedicated to the homeowners and they have whatever percentage interest of the number of residents in that subdivision. There's on the majority of all the language, it does state that the city and or county has easement access to perform maintenance under emergency conditions. And we would recommend maybe starting to perform the maintenance for some of these ones that we could count under kind of emergency conditions, is that they don't meet the maintenance standards and it does pose a water quality issue instead of trying to rededicate all of the stormwater facilities to the city, which would be a much lengthier process. And so we're still on track. We're bringing to you level of service 2 tonight. We'll bring the other level of service at the end of June, and then we'll have a couple of times to revise and move forward still with an August adoption of new rates. But with that, I'll take any questions.
A couple of basic questions for you. I think it was your first or second slide. There was a note up there that talked about who was, how the billing was handled, and that said billing except school district, sewer district. I thought we made a change that the school district is
Oh,
now
we
being
bill
charged.
them. It just, they don't get billed on their tax statement because they don't have property taxes, so the city invoices them separately.
Okay, What-
We send an invoice annually to the school district and the post office and the sewer district.
okay. And then on your rate increase, I noticed the numbers up on the screen were different than what's in our packet.
The 55,
The number two.
the number two at 55,
Yeah.
58. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the number or 4430?
This one, so the 4430 just looks at the maintenance of all stormwater facilities, and the 55 looks at the maintenance of only the private residential stormwater facilities.
In our packet for scenario 2, it says 4430.
Yeah.
Looks like 4430 got pulled.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's an error in your packet. This one's correct.
Thank you.
And the last question I got before I'll open it up here. I'm assuming that the commercial folks are probably more in compliance because of the MPDES permit issue. They have to have an ongoing permit for discharge. So I'm assuming they're probably doing their reporting job and a little more diligent in maintaining their systems.
Some of them, so not all commercial facilities need to have a separate NPDES permit. We only have a couple in the city. They're primarily focused in the industrial area. Braven Metal is a auto recycling company. They have a separate industrial permit. It's only those with the industrial permit that have additional requirements. A lot of the other commercial facilities like we have is the Safeway Shopping Center. They have a detention vault and they have a pond. We have the other commercial centers, they have detention pipes or vaults. Some of them have ponds. The school district, for example, they're another one. We've inspected those and we've just had quite a bit of success of communicating the maintenance requirements for those facilities and then having that be done. I mean, they're entities that are already organized. It's a commercial facility. They have the finances in order to maintain those. The real challenge is working with the residential
Right.
facilities.
And as of now, just to clarify, we do not, when we do a plat, 20 lot plat, we don't ask for dedication of that storm drainage facility, correct?
Correct.
And what's the reasoning behind that?
Ordinance. I mean, at that point in the past, that was a requirement on our plats. And
So you had a period of time where
there
it
was a period of time that it was required, but it's not a requirement in our city ordinances.
And I'll note that that was a long time ago. We have only a handful of residential stormwater facilities that the city maintains.
Well, wouldn't that lead, Gary, to homeowners association taking care of their own stormwater drains and not passing the bill on to the city to take care of for them? And that's the whole purpose of an
Yeah,
HOA.
I would assume, but the problem is they're not.
Well, when they're not, I don't know why it's so hard for us to say to get them in compliance, because when they're not, because a lot of them just will dissolve the HOA because we don't want to pay any bills.
Right.
Why don't we just enact an emergency maintenance on them and then charge them accordingly?
We could do that. That's why our current code language is written. And if they don't pay, then the option is to put liens on the homes.
Because I'm assuming to take care of an average detention pond for a 50 homeowner association, they're paying, I don't know, $4,000 to $5,000 a year if they're maintaining it correctly, maybe even a little bit less.
Mhm.
But these ones that are way out of compliance, emergency, that gets into the $10,000 to $15,000 range
Plus, yeah.
or more. So then when you say, well, let's charge everyone and then help these people who haven't done anything, I don't think that's fair to everyone who's been paying every single month or year in HOA and association dues, taking care of it properly in compliance, to help all these that decide, we don't want to pay HOA anymore and get rid of it. To me, I don't see the fairness in that.
I think that's why I agree with what you're saying. That's why I really like the scenario 3 option. Because it it allows us to get in and bring everything to compliance. It gives us the control to be able to do that. But for those commercial entities and residential entities that are doing the work, that are doing what they need to do, they can get a credit back for those funds. So they're in essence not having to pay those extra fees. And then I worry about if we don't take control, it's only just going to keep getting worse, because that's true for those HOAs, for those detention ponds and vaults that actually have HOAs, but for the ones that have dissolved or the ones that we can't contact, or it just draws out this process of there being, all these facilities that we can't manage, that we can't clean, and it's impacting, our environment and our lake. And
But
Yeah,
why
so
make
I like,
everybody pay for it though?
say that again, sorry.
And why would everybody pay for that? Because under this scenario, you're paying
The-
$44.30 to everybody to help maintain these.
The places that are doing what they're supposed to do, though, get that money back. They can get a credit
From who?
Under scenario 3,
under scenario 3.
it'd be a
No.
credit program from the city.
So we wouldn't maintain them, and so there would be that cost savings for us. The challenge being is we would hire the staff to maintain them. So we're still already paying for the staff and then not knowing who's gonna apply for the credit. It does add a level of complexity to manage it administratively. But it is something that we could do, and we could build that program over the 3 years of trying to bring them all into compliance by doing the work and raising the rates, and then revisit our rates.
I guess too, if I'm an HOA and the first year and I get dinged because we haven't been keeping it up, but I understand that if we take it over and we continue to maintain it after the city's come in and cleaned it and charged us for it, then that we're eligible for that credit moving forward. I mean, that feels like a motivating factor to kind of get our ducks in a row. And
So I
Take it
don't know if
over.
I love the idea of taxing everybody and then making them get a credit back. That seems like a lot of work for us. It's like, we're gonna make you pay it even though you're in compliance, and then you can ask for a credit back. That seems like how our federal government works.
It sounds like the credit's only available to people that are taking care of one of these facilities. So this would apply to everyone, correct? But only the people who are caring for a facility as they should are eligible for the credit. So some people are still paying more. Is that accurate?
Correct. So if you, for example, in this scenario, if you are a homeowners association and you are caring for your stormwater pond, your rates would increase, everybody's rates would increase. And if you did not apply for a credit back on your rates, because you're already maintaining it, then you would still pay that increase.
What if I'm part of an HOA that doesn't take care of one of these facilities?
Then you would pay the increase and the city would maintain the pond.
Well, I'm saying if there's no pond, I just pay an increased rate and I have no option to seek a credit, correct?
Correct. So, are you referring to like residents that live here in the city that live in homes that aren't associated with any stormwater facilities?
Correct.
Yeah. I understand that. I think the important thing too is to look at it as I mentioned before, that it's all part of one system. It's true that there are certain homes that then benefit, that are built, that are newer, that have these stormwater facilities. And that stormwater facility serves their home. But that stormwater facility still discharges into our city stormwater system. It discharges into our streams, into our lake, into our wetlands. And so the impact is still citywide. And I'll just give you a quick little anecdotal example. Over the last 2 years, our maintenance and operation team has worked diligently to clean all of our stormwater facilities and all of our catch basins. Since they've done that, we've had the lowest phosphorus records with the city. And of course, we've been doing alum, but this is going to be the second year in a row that we're not going to need to treat for alum because it's such low phosphorus. And we haven't been able to go 2 years in a row before. We also don't get the calls every winter of residential flooding and street flooding. The maintenance really does have a large impact, and we're seeing it just from the city's effort in maintaining it over these past couple of years. And so when you look at it collectively and the collective benefit to all, that's what you're paying for.
And that makes sense. I just want to make sure if I understood Marcus's point, there would still be some people who are paying an increased rate because of a few not doing their, the required work for the facilities that they do have responsibility for.
You're correct.
Okay.
Sort of
That
like
is the That's the challenge, but yes, you're correct.
It's sort of like paying for school taxes for families that don't have kids. I mean, you're paying for that collective benefit of having a community that has good education, it's educating there.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is if, again, Marcus, jump in if I'm putting words in your mouth, but it sounded like you were saying, is there a way to, the people who aren't doing their part to keep the system up, is there a way to make them now pay their share and keep up rather than penalizing everyone at large? So you still get the improvement to the system, but it falls on the people who have let it lapse in the first place.
Because my thought would be is why not enact this emergency maintenance on all these terrible ones and charge the people who are part of that and get them to bring it up to code because they've got the benefit of probably 10, 15 years of not having to pay and to take care of it. And then we see what the number comes out at. I agree with you. At some point, I'd like to see that, but I don't feel comfortable making everyone, because it's like 7,000 to take care of a vault or take care of the vault per vault that we have was the number, I think, somewhere
Yeah,
around
that was just the average. Yeah, there's
Average,
definitely
right.
more that are.
But there's some that are way less. And they've been taking care of it this whole time, every year, every month, making their payments diligently. And I have a hard time spreading that burden across everyone who's doing that and then say, well, we can give you a credit back. And these people who have horrific, I've seen them, and there's trees and everything, that's going to be, like I said, 15, maybe more, $20,000 to go. And why not make them come to compliance and then see where we're at once we get everyone? And I understand there's a lot of staff time, but we're talking about bringing 4 new maintenance workers on.
Mhm.
And we're looking at what, 120,000 per?
Yeah, about 115.
Shannon, what would be the administrative needs / cost to do and I agree with you, just, but what would be the administrative cost for us if we didn't increase the issue and we instead went after the HOAs who weren't doing that, the 300 people in an HOA? What's that administrative cost to then contact each one of those homeowners, telling them they've got to get this done, and then eventually do the work, and then bill them, and then lien them? Like, what's that cost?
I don't have an exact dollar amount for you, but I can tell you that that follows similarly our process now. I mean, we contact all of the homeowners, whether it be via letter. We've explored some different methods of trying to contact them, meet with them, provide the technical assistance. The cost that we would want to evaluate is what is our upfront cost to do the maintenance, and then we would bill them with hopes that everybody would pay it back, and with the reality that not everybody would.
Because I thought we've already done all this work. We've already figured out who's who, everything that's done. We send a letter and say, you guys either community come and
Yeah.
fix this or we do it.
Yeah, I think we know, yeah, we've done that work, but.
Yeah.
But the question becomes HOA X, who hasn't done maintenance in 20 years, that has 300 members. What becomes the city administrative cost to get them in compliance? It's-
Why wouldn't we just pass it all on to them?
Yeah,
I-
can
I
we roll
think
that in?
can, but what I'm trying to maybe think about is, what's that, is that upfront FTE that runs that program for a couple of years to make that happen? And then we do recoup that cost, or do you recoup the cost immediately, or is it when that house gets sold and the liens adjudicated and like
Right.
there's just so much administrative cost to that.
Well, as a city, we get our liens paid first.
Yeah.
So we are jumped to priority number 1. So no one's going to sell their house around us or get around doing that.
But I think what the mayor's saying is that the administrative costs, and I can just speak from our experience in trying to bring people into compliance and the cost of doing liens and legal fees and such often exceed the cost of what we're trying to recoup. And so we opt to find that doing small claims court is more cost effective than going that route. So I guess for me, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Marcus, and I struggle with that. Our HOA has been responsible for 18 years that we've been there, and I see ones in our neighborhood that I walk by that are clearly not compliance, and it doesn't make sense to me that somebody say, hey, we're just going to defer that maintenance and our HOAs paid tens of thousands of dollars over the years to maintain And now they're gonna pay 8 times the cost of what they're currently paying. When they've already been doing their part to maintain it, while these other people are going to be the beneficiaries of that. I do love to hear the number, hear about the low phosphorus. I mean, that's awesome. And I hope that we can continue to do that. But I just, I think administratively that per cost, the cost of saving that $44 per homeowner to the mayor's point, how are we going to refund $44 or whatever, $55.58 per lot?
Yeah.
I said that cost has got to be extraordinary too, because mine comes out of escrow. That goes pay for that's lumped into my fees, my property taxes, and the stormwater is part of that. So I just don't see there being an effective means of refunding that money that will probably cost more than that $55 per lot.
Yeah, it's really where we start looking at where a credit might make the most sense is in our commercial facilities where they're not just paying one ESU, they're paying multiple ESU. And so their impact is higher than what they're feeling if we apply that rate increase per ESU.
And I guess, Shannon, I have another question. So how do we arrive at the number of FTEs that's required? I mean, I don't see a breakdown of like the labor, general labor, like I don't see categorization of each of the ones, like this is a level 3, this is a level 2. So, and based on that category, like the approximate number of hours that it would take to bring that into compliance for me, that would make the most sense in arriving at a number of FTEs required. And then what do we do then once the heavy legwork is done and bringing all those into compliance? Then we're in maintenance phase instead of, it's like going and doing a remodel on a house, gutting it down to the studs. Once you get it built back out, then all you need to do is basic maintenance, and the costs, in times of labor and material aren't going to be nearly the same.
Correct. So we could come back and look at, is there a cost adjustment after this 3 years? And remember, so this is looking at, bringing these into compliance within a 3-year period. And once you bring everything into compliance, they do require maintenance annually. We are required to maintain them annually. So then you're looking at maintaining 245 facilities annually and not just the 245 divided by 3 once a year to bring them up to it in 3 years.
Wonder what it would look like if we said that we we're going to tax everybody this, because if I was in a homeowner association, I wouldn't pay another dime towards it.
Charge your HOA.
I wouldn't pay another dime for it. I would say I'm not going to pay anything that has to do with that because the city's going to pay for it.
Right. So there's your cost savings, right? So in my HOA, we've got the biggest vault in the city. So then my HOA could then say, all right, you're not, this portion of your $100 a month is your vault maintenance. You can reduce that because now the city's gonna take it.
But the only problem with that is it's going to get worse because they've been maintaining it usually on a yearly basis. And now all of a sudden, we're going to have all the maintenance that no one's paying for or coming into compliance with, unless you want to get a credit back, which I would say, why get a credit back?
Yeah, it's a tough one that kind of to visualize what I was thinking about earlier. Let's say you got a defunct HOA of 100 people and we go in and do the emergency work and it costs 10,000. So that bill per house is $100, right? But our administrative, our legal fees to collect that 100 is gonna be 400, right?
But they'd be paying it.
Those get
We would
tacked
lean
on
it.
to the charge to the code.
That would get
Right.
taxed onto it.
Yeah. And I'm with you. They haven't done anything, they haven't paid
Haven't done
anything in
anything.
20 years, right? So it's just.
So the idea being after we do this emergency stuff, are you still putting the pond back in the maintenance obligation of the homeowners association? Or are you asking for dedication of that pond?
We would keep it once we bring them all into compliance, if the city wanted to continue just taking over the maintenance of it, then we could pursue dedicating it to the city.
It would, I mean, I hate to say that, but it seems like that'd be the kicker to get that elephant off their back, in the sense that you're gonna pay one time, fix it, and then it becomes the city's deal.
That's another option that we
Yeah,
could look at.
exactly.
I'd be much better with having them fix it and pay for it.
Well,
and then-
no, exactly, but I'm just saying to help them have that happen, I guess,
Right,
because then they could wash their hands of it after they pay it.
right. I would go for that. That's what I'm saying is if we brought all those into compliance, then what does that number look like? Do we really have to go to 55-58, or could we be at 32-25?
Well, that's what it says in here. It's in 3 years after we get that we could reestablish that and lower it.
I completely understand where it's going in 3 years from now, but I'm thinking about people who complain about a toll on the trestle, complain about people who are using the food bank. I hear about everyone having taxed, and I'm thinking to myself, what does it look like when you start adding this on? And then nobody's gonna take care of their vaults anymore, starting the moment we start taxing this. So then I think that maintenance is gonna be a little higher than we're thinking. I think that number is gonna come out higher than we think. Because Brett, you wouldn't pay into your system and you have one of the most expensive systems out there.
Hey, Shannon, if all the private, ponds and vaults were dedicated to the city, would that also include the NGPA area that it drains into?
It doesn't have to. And
Cause that would be a concern for me, cause then we just have to start maintaining those areas also. And that, we don't want that. We don't.
no, we don't want to maintain the NGPA area, and we probably wouldn't want to. We would want to explore the options of what a dedication would look like. We would likely want to pursue maybe a maintenance easement on it. I think that there's quite a bit of legal process and administrative process to have it rededicated, but it would be up. We'd be able to do a maintenance easement. I know Snohomish County, what they do is they allocate a certain amount of funds each year to private stormwater facility maintenance, and they do it for the collective good of maintaining them. And they send out the homeowners a letter that says, we have money in our surface water program because of your surface water rates. We're going to come in and maintain it. You still own it. You're still responsible for it. We're going to maintain it. So they do it for the greater good benefit, and they allocate those funds in their program for that. They're also a phase 1 permittee, and so their NPDES requirements are a little bit more stringent, and so that's another reason that they do it, but they still leave the ownership with the homeowners.
I have one final question because I don't want to talk about this all day. Are there any grants that we applied for or any monies out there to help these defunct HOAs with these big problems? Are there Snohomish County, the state, anything that goes along with this?
Not that we've recently found. Also, I do think that homeowners associations would have some challenges going after some of these grants and applying for them on their own to do this. We have two HOAs with 2 stormwater facilities right now that need to be completely rebuilt.
What about the city going after funds?
The city going after funds, we have not to date. We also haven't identified any specific funds that would allow us to come in and do that. We would probably look at it just like any other stormwater project, capital project of redoing them, and then have to apply for those funds. It would be an administrative lift to then seek those grants and apply for it, but that's an option that we could consider.
Don't we have a grant writer on staff?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to get some clarity and direction moving forward. We don't have to make a decision tonight. What I really want to make sure is that I'm providing you the information so that when I come back again, you have the information that you want to see to make a decision. So if I heard correctly, we want an evaluation of what's the administrative cost to move forward with implementing our current code language, which is enacting emergency on the facilities that are not meeting maintenance standards, and then performing the maintenance and billing those homeowners individually. What would that administrative cost look like on our end? Just looking at what would a program look like if we had a position of saying, bring your stormwater facility into compliance, and then we'll take over the maintenance after that. What would that scenario look like? And you just wanted a more detailed breakdown on how we evaluated the FTEs. Is there anything else?
Well, I would just like to, like, the grading system for all the private ones. I mean, to look and just see like severe maintenance issues, moderate maintenance issues, mild maintenance issues, or whatever tier system you want to use, so we kind of have an idea. But for me, I guess my bigger concern, and I share the same concern with, for example, like the sewer district, is the aging infrastructure. What does it cost if we assume all of these into our system and then the lifespan for these vaults is 30 years, and now we're assuming the liability away from the HOAs, now we're into hundreds of thousands or millions for these, so that's a bigger concern for me. And so instead of $44 or $55, whatever, we're talking hundreds of dollars or even thousands per person, depending on the severity of the situation. So I don't know. I mean, you're the stormwater expert. I don't even know what the lifespan of that is. And how much, like, for example, one in Brett's neighborhood versus the one in mine versus the one that's, 20 years older. To just get a ballpark idea of what the life expectancy, like I know what the average lifespan of a sewer pipe is, but I don't know what it is for stormwater vault. Or even depending on the types of systems they have.
It seems like a lot of work too, but it would be nice to know what we're gonna inherit with this project.
I don't want to inherit massive liability.
Well, kind of along that same line, and this I'm sure would be hard to calculate. So a ballpark figure would be fine. But what is this costing us now? The current state of the system not, being optimal. What is the cost with that, and how does that stack up against the cost to bring it into compliance and maintain it? Just so I have a rough idea. Worst case scenario, say we had to eat the whole cost of going in and fixing everything. How does that stack up against what it's costing us now?
And when you say what is it costing us now, that's just administratively to coordinate with these
I mean,
agencies. We don't go in and do any maintenance. There's been a couple times where we have done emergency maintenance because it's impacted our right of way. But that's not as frequent.
This has just been getting our arms around it.
Yeah.
So Brett.
I'm talking more about earlier. You mentioned, that these facilities being, in a suboptimal condition affects the quality of the whole system. I want to get some idea, if possible, of what dollar value goes along with that.
Okay.
How much is that costing us?
Okay.
I guess one other question, add pile onto your list there. In addition, I mean, I'm sure the employees are outstanding, the ones you're gonna hire. But I also want to make sure they have like appropriate equipment to, maximize their efficiency. So I'm sure it's not just FTEs, there's also gonna be vehicles and equipment. I saw some little funky machine that was doing some work over at a storm place in my neighborhood, and I don't know what it was, but it was creepy crawly and was chopping stuff down to the ground. So, but I'm sure it's not a cheap machine.
Robot slope mowers.
Robot slope mower. All right. Well, I saw it in action.
We have one.
But is one sufficient to handle,
Yeah.
The volume that we're considering?
Yeah, we'll bring that back.
Okay, quickly, any other comments? We get appropriate direction?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Affordable Housing Behavioral Health Fund, Russ Wright, 3 years.
Okay, Russ Wright, Community Development Director for the City of Lake Stevens. Good evening, Council, Mayor. The next two items on your agenda should go pretty quickly. We have a couple of ILAs coming in from different affordable housing groups in the community. And the first one, as the Council President mentioned, is an ILA with the Affordable Housing and Behavioral Health Group with Snohomish County. What they are asking is that all of the cities sign on to this ILA and use some of the processes that are already in place through the Technical Advisory Committee and then the Planning Advisory Board, then that would make recommendations, or the Policy Advisory Board that make recommendations to the County Council. So County Council is already collecting funds through retail sales tax, as well as they have a dedicated fund for affordable housing and behavioral health. And again, all this would do is allow our cities who already participate on the TAC process and these other processes to make decisions on where these affordable housing dollars and behavioral health dollars are spent throughout the county. So that's the ask, and just trying to gauge council's temperature tonight. If this is something you're supportive of, it's pretty minor and it really doesn't affect us. And we can bring it back on a consent agenda at a future meeting.
So as I understand it, the ILA is just a matter of adding Monroe and what was the others?
That's the second one. This one is, it's the county has funds available for affordable housing and behavioral health. And by signing this ILA, those dollars get fed into the money that the Technical Advisory Committee through a granting agency already makes recommendations on, goes to the Policy Advisory Board, takes it in consideration and makes a final recommendation to County Council for distributing funds.
And that would be in lieu of us getting our shared funds.
These
To
are
do-
just county
to do
funds.
something
Yeah.
similar. Right.
I want,
Just speak from a county perspective, the TAC and the PAB have been around for, I think,
Long time.
yeah, Executive Summers letter speaks to it. It's a pretty well-oiled machine. It's a really, it's a group of community members from all different areas who are evaluating applications and making funding decisions.
Yep.
And it's a multi-step process. So there's lots of eyes that see these applications that make these decisions. To me, it makes sense to take a new type of funding and have it go through a process that's already working rather than creating a brand new process to evaluate those applications. So.
And
and
As
something-
being the city's member of TAC, it is a very rigorous process that you go through to evaluate all of these funding requests and then make those recommendations. So
so I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. Basically, the money is already, that's a non-issue. This is kind of making sure we have a seat at the table.
yes,
Okay. So in your opinion, is there any reason not to do this?
I don't see a downside.
Okay, thank you.
Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Next
Okay.
one.
Great. So the next one, we are participants with the Alliance for Affordable Housing. Periodically, when new members join that group, they have to update their ILA. So what's in front of you tonight is an update to the ILA with the city of Monroe and the town of Darrington wanting to become members of that group. And there would also be language in here that future amendments of this sort wouldn't have to come back before any city council just to add members. So again, not a lot of risk to the city of Lake Stevens. We've been a member of this group since 2013. And this is just about other member cities and towns wanting to join this group.
What does the Affordable Housing Alliance do?
They work under the umbrella of HASCO, the Housing Alliance of Snohomish County. And what they have done for most cities is provide statistical and demographic information. And they've helped a lot of the smaller jurisdictions working on their housing elements for their comprehensive plans. But really, they track a lot of census and provide a lot of data analysis for the cities.
Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay.
We'll bring that back on consent.
Darrington wants in now.
I think it's a total waste of money, but having participated in that group previously in the last couple of years, I don't know, maybe it's changed, Angie. Hopefully it has, but man, what a great group.
I think, I think their presentation at not our last council meeting, a couple council meetings back. I think that's really indicative of what they do. They're able to kind of drill down the data and come and let cities know kind of where they're at in terms of their plans. And you're right. I mean, is that something that's of benefit or not? I think if we're
I
in
don't
the.
see it as accomplishing anything.
It's, other than letting us know how to put our arms around the situation
True.
and look at grant.
We
funding,
talk about
look at-
affordable housing all the time.
Well, I think
And
that
this
if we-
organization doesn't do anything for affordable housing.
I think
So-
if we had a developer that was interested in actually bringing affordable housing to Lake Stevens, they would be a tremendous benefit to that developer to help look at ways to fund that work and what the need is in our city.
It's not realistic, but yeah. Not unless there was a massive tax credit coming to.
Yeah,
Which that's,
a
Definitely
developer
not.
would know all that information before they would come here.
Mhm.
And would not rely upon this group for information for that purpose, to see if a project were financially viable. So okay, let's move on. Fleet leasing program, Lori?
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. So good evening, council and mayor. My name is Lori Erickson. I am the Public Works Analyst, and I'm here tonight to give you an update on an analysis that we recently conducted, looking at the lease program that we have through Enterprise. Tonight, I also have my partner in crime, Curtis Clifton. He is our operations manager, and he can also help answer any questions that you might have about this analysis. So to give you a little background here, basically a couple of years ago in 2022, there was some interest in looking at ways to get a newer, safer fleet for our crews. The Enterprise Fleet Leasing Program was one of the cost-effective and time-efficient ways to accomplish this. And in 2023, we went ahead and we implemented that program and we contracted with Enterprise. And this includes leasing several new vehicles and selling our older vehicles through the surplus program that they have at Enterprise. This year, we went ahead and we took a look at what we were expecting to have this program do for us from that 2022 analysis, and I'm here to present what those updates are to date. So there's a few things to know about this model going into this analysis. So I'll cover both the objectives and the assumptions. The objectives we had were the following. We wanted to lower the age of our current fleet from about 13 years on average to 5 years in the near future. We wanted to reduce operating costs, improve the reliability and safety of those vehicles. As you know, vehicles have changed a lot, especially in the last 10 years with technology and safety features, et cetera. And we also wanted to reduce the administrative burden to procure and upfit those vehicles. I'll use that term a few more times in this presentation, but upfitting is basically where we get a vehicle and then we have to accessorize or add features to it to really serve the needs of the people driving them. Oops. Some assumptions going into the model that we used include new vehicle costs through Enterprise is about 15 less than through the city procurement. This has proven to be consistent in the first full year of us being on the contract. The recovered equity through Enterprise is also 20% more than when we do city surplus. So basically, when we work with Enterprise and say, hey, we have this 2018 Ford F-150, we get about 20% more having them sell it on our behalf than if we go through traditional surplus processes. The administrative costs through Enterprise is about 4 hours per vehicle compared to 24 hours when we do that in-house. Basically, Enterprise does a lot of that work for us, and so it ends up saving us time and money from having to do that work ourselves. Another assumption with this model is that we used an anticipated rate of inflation of about 4%. Our model can be flexible if we wanted to go in and play with numbers and have that be more than 4% or less. We do have that capability. And in future years, the city intends to evaluate options to have vendors perform the maintenance and track vehicle health to further reduce costs. So a little bit about our current fleet and where we are. So fleet size and age goals. Our current replacement cycle is approximately 9 to 10 years per vehicle. And in the long term, we want to try to get that down to 5 years. So cutting that replacement cycle in half. Our current average age in the fleet as of 2023 was 13 years. And as of right now, since we are just beginning these replacement cycles with Enterprise, we're on track to be at 5 years by 2028. As far as fuel consumption, we're currently, we're currently at about 15 miles per gallon. What that equates to is approximately $1,400 per year per vehicle. And what we'd like to do is increase our fuel efficiency to at least 22 miles per gallon or more, bringing that cost down to about $960 per vehicle per year. Finally, we want to increase the value or those dollars that we recover through the surplus process, which is about 20% more per vehicle when we surplus through Enterprise. So now we get to the meat of it and looking at the actual analysis that we did. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions that we asked and walk you through the data in this model and what it means. So the first thing that we want to cover is, are we going to actually save on maintenance? So we are currently paying about $78 per month per vehicle on maintenance, which comes out to about $946 per year per vehicle. The projected costs we have for the newer fleet, so having fleet that's 5 years old or newer, comes down to only $18.73 per month per vehicle, or about $225 per year per vehicle. The way to read this graph is we've got the years down at the bottom, and we have the average age of the fleet, what it currently is and what it's projected to be in blue next to the columns. And then you can see the annual maintenance costs for taking care of the fleet as a whole there at the very top. So what you see is a nice downward trend over time. However, we do have like a very slight blip in between 2029 and 2030. And that has to do simply with the amount of vehicles in our fleet. So we'll be at our total goal of having 50 vehicles in the fleet at that time. And a couple of other notes when it comes to maintenance, there's a few factors that go into this, including new cars tend to have replacement parts when needed. They're more readily available for us, so there's less downtime on those vehicles, and they tend to be a little bit cheaper because more places have them readily available. And newer vehicles are also less likely to need major repairs. They usually have fewer maintenance needs or overall repairs just in general. For example, older cars tend to need more oil changes more frequently, so they tend to need oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Whereas newer vehicles today typically need oil changes every 5,000 to 6,500 miles. So there's some built-in efficiencies with the newer vehicles. All right, so next part, are we actually going to save on upfitting? So again, upfitting, this is where we customize the vehicles to better suit our needs. And sometimes we refer to these as admin costs. So in this part of the model, we're really looking at, again, what does that look like if we own our vehicles versus if we're leasing them? And when we get the new vehicles, they have to have work done to finish getting them ready for use. However, with the leasing program, Enterprise takes the bulk of that burden off of our plates. They do that for us. It is part of our current plan to get 8 new vehicles per year. Each vehicle, as a reminder, is on a 5-year leasing cycle. Right now, we are working towards replacing our fleet, which currently includes a mix of owned vehicles and some of them are leased. Again, that future state, we want to have all of our vehicles to be leased, at least for the light fleet. 2 more things I want to say about this part of the analysis. As far as reading this graph here, just know that that x-axis there across the bottom is the total number of vehicles that are replaced in the fleet. And though that represents what the total number of leased vehicles are. So in the first column, we see the number 8. That shows that we had 8 vehicles in 2023 that we leased. By the end of 2024, we're estimating we'll have 16, so on and so forth. By about 2028, we should have all 50 of our vehicles fully leased at that time. So will we recover more value by keeping a newer fleet? So typically older vehicles have less value when they become surplus. Currently, what we're finding is the recent batch that we surplus got about $12,000 back in our pockets through the surplus program. However, the few vehicles we have sent through Enterprise so far have gotten significantly more back for us. So where we estimated maybe $12,000, we got something more like $16,000 or even $18,000 simply by having them broker that for us. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I'll call out about this part here on this graph, the first 5 years of the model are significantly lower than the future 5 years, simply because we are getting rid of the older, less valuable vehicles. Moving forward, our fleet will be newer. So we'll start to see that upward trend of getting more money back for our vehicles because we will be replacing them much sooner. This model isn't 100% perfect, but we did try to include inflation, at least starting in 2028. So the big question to try to wrap this up, is it more cost effective for us to continue with the leasing program or to go back to owning? Long story short, in the bottom right corner of this table, you'll see that we have a delta of $903,000, which is telling us that if we continue on this path of being on the leasing program, the city will save over $900,000 over a 10-year period. I will call out, you might see in that far right column, the Delta owned versus lease. In year 6 of the program, which would be 2028, you'll see that the program appears to cost us $40,000 more dollars. However, that takes into account inflation, the fact that all of our fleet would be leased at that time. But even with that trajectory, we're still on the path to save just under $1 million. And that is it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
So one of the things you referenced in the packet was improve staff morale. And so can you have any like comments on people's thoughts on having newer vehicles versus antiquated vehicles that are falling apart and breaking down?
Absolutely. So I'll maybe add a little bit and then I'll invite Curtis to add anything that I missed. Generally, people feel better driving newer cars. They look nicer, they drive nicer, they have nicer features. And just generally, if you have a choice of driving a newer vehicle versus an older one, odds are you're probably going to choose that newer one.
And I would also add that they have expressed, at least to me, the pride that they take, knowing that they are individually assigned to these new vehicles. And one thing that we did make an attempt to do when we were ordering these is bring the crew in and ask them, what is it you need to use this truck for? Tell us, we're not going to tell you how it's going to be outfitted. Tell us what you need to make this truck or this vehicle efficient for you. And I think that's gone a long way with them to having the input, because it's a tool. It allows them to do their work. So I've seen, they make a point every week to make sure that they're clean. We have a contract with Wet Rabbit. They go through, get it washed once a week, come back at the end of the week on a Friday and clean everything out. And it's been positive so far. I have made a point, because I told them with this 3 or 5 year cycle, I said, don't get too comfortable with these, because we are going to replace them at the 5-year mark, if not sooner, depending on what the resale values are at.
I had a question about on slide 5, where you talk about fleet size and age goals, and specifically about the fuel consumption. First of all, this is great. Great information. Love the way it's laid out. It's really helpful to kind of see what the projections look like. Your goals are to reduce fuel consumption. I'm assuming in part with newer cars, they get better gas mileage. Is there a conversation or a plan to start replacing some of the vehicles with electric or hybrid vehicles?
So I'd say there have been conversations, but there's no solid plan in place to say by this year, we will have X amount of our fleet electrified. So this analysis did not account for any of that.
Okay.
It just assumed hypothetically we stay with gas vehicles, but that's definitely a conversation that's being had.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
I have a question. Does anyone take their vehicles home with them?
Really rarely, right? For the on-call?
Yeah, the only vehicle that goes home is the on-call, if they choose. So whoever's on call for the week, they have the choice that they can take the truck home with them.
Great, thanks.
A lot of them don't, but they do have that option.
Great. That's my question.
And we have bought a couple of hybrid trucks that we have, and we just bought an electric van, I believe. Is it 100% electric?
Yeah, I actually will discuss that in my facilities presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
Councilman Jorstad, I was going to ask that same question. Are the electric vehicles more expensive at this point?
I can't really speak to if they're more extensive. I don't really have a whole lot of knowledge as far as the EVs are concerned. I know that the one that we do have, they seem to like it so far, and the options that came with it.
The answer is yes, Gary. Electric vehicles are significantly more expensive than gas or hybrid.
We save on gas.
But we pay for electricity, and places are finding, like California, that they're paying more in electricity than they would even for the highest gas prices in the country. So there's a balance to be struck there. But certainly want to be mindful of opportunity we have to improve the environment.
Right.
Well,
How do we charge the one we have, Public Works? Do we have a?
We don't have a dedicated spot yet for that, but as we have, like, as Lori mentioned, we have had conversations as far as transitioning or getting that going, and we have selected spots at Public Works to get permanent charging stations installed. Right now, they just have a temporary box and cord that they plug the van into.
The Target charging stations seem to always be open, so maybe just go to Target. Plug in.
I would love that idea.
During lunch break,
Right?
plug in a Target.
Are those fast chargers?
I don't know. I don't.
Because those apparently are quite a bit more expensive than non-fast chargers.
Hey, Laura, I just, this is super impressive. I just think about a couple years ago where we didn't even know how many vehicles we had, what the average age was, what maintenance costs were, and here we are with this information now. Like, I mean, this is like really, really impressive. So thank you and whoever else is responsible for getting us, up to snuff in this area.
Awesome.
one of the
Thank you
things
for-
I would like to caution you on when you start looking at electrifying the fleet and the cost for that. Sound Transit. Community Transit has been doing a lot of work on that. And one of the things that we had to impress upon them for costs was you also need to look at recycling costs for batteries, which is really expensive right now. And I'm not even talking about replacing the battery. I'm talking about recycling the old battery. We need to take that into account.
If we're on a
because
5-year
it's-
cycle,
Seems like if it's a fleet, yeah.
it's 5-year
seems
cycle, we
something
would.
We'll have to manage. It would be.
Yeah, it's very costly to get rid of those batteries.
So just be mindful that a major car rental company just took a multi-billion-dollar hit because they bought a whole bunch of electric vehicles and it cost them billions and billions of dollars because there wasn't the demand and the cost. There wasn't the opportunity for them to just cycle them out. There was costs associated with that. And we learned on our trip DC that they're moving to hydrogen with community transit because electric has enough limitations that they're realizing that maybe that's not the direction they need to go. And so it's encouraging that they're looking at other ways to provide environmentally friendly transportation opportunities.
Well, the vaccine for CT on going to hydrogen was electrics can't accomplish what they need to accomplish in our county.
I'm gonna pull
For
this.
instance, they're not gonna get an electric
Squirrel.
bus out to Darrington and back again. It just isn't gonna happen. So we need to go to hydrogen. And there's other things happening with the hydrogen, like where do you get it? Can we make our own? Can we sell it? Which is, yes, we can, but
So I had a quick question. I want to double check something I'm seeing in the final chart here. So at year 28, it looks like it gets progressively more expensive to lease than to own. Like the trend appears to be increasing. So I was just wondering if you could help me understand that.
Absolutely. So your observation is correct. And when I went back into the model to find out why was that, the two biggest factors are the number of vehicles we will have in our fleet that will be leased. So those monthly payments all add up. The other piece is inflation. So inflation really starts to get nasty. If we have a 4% inflation year after year after year, those costs just continue to go up. So looking at it at a glance, yeah, it looks like it'll actually cost us $40,000 more that year. And it's true, but that's the biggest factor is just the increase in costs. However, what I would recommend is, in a few years, we do another analysis and we see where are we, what are the numbers telling us at that time, and we reevaluate. If we stay on the current path here, we're still $900,000 ahead of where we would be if we owned the vehicles outright.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ready to move forward here. Facilities maintenance needs analysis. I don't see Aaron here, so who gets to take this?
I am filling in for him this evening.
All right. Thank you, Curtis.
Okay, good evening, council, Mr. Mayor. I am Curtis Clifton, filling in for Aaron Alverson, the Public Works Director. Tonight, I get to discuss the facility maintenance needs analysis. So tonight, some of the topics I'd like to discuss is the current state and growth of our facilities. The challenges we're facing with that growth and the outstanding work orders that we have. Some of the interim countermeasures that we've implemented, improvements made to date, and the solutions, alternatives, and the analysis that we have come up with, and the potential budget impacts of what we decide moving forward. So this graph here shows city-owned facility conditions per square feet, starting in '96. But what I really would like to focus on is the last 6 years, from 2017 to 2023. We doubled in size and added an additional 25% with the most recent purchase of the South Lake Stevens complex. And that gave us a total of 22 facilities that we maintain. So with that growth, some of the challenges that we face is limited bandwidth. We have over 100,000 square feet to maintain. As of right now, we have 2 dedicated employees to tackle that. The increased demand, 827 work orders generated in 2023 alone. And the citywide frustration of not being able to meet that demand. 205 city staff generated service requests in 2023. And currently we're at 60, give or take, work order backlog. And if we keep on this trajectory, we're looking at potentially 200+ work orders that we'll be behind on with all the new facilities that we have by the end of this year. So this next slide is a breakdown per work orders per facility for 2023. And I highlighted the 4 biggest ones, which were the City Hall, Public Works, the mill, and the police station, which made sense. Those are our most popular and largest facilities that we own. Some of the interim countermeasures that we have implemented to try to combat the amount of work coming in is we've hired private contractors to complete some of the regular maintenance. The biggest example of that would be the landscaping. We have a lot of landscaping to maintain, and we just weren't able to keep up with it. So we have a contractor in place to handle that. We've optimized schedules to improve service. We've had to adjust some of the employees' schedules so we can have a 7-day-a-week maintenance on our facilities. So at any point during the week, we have somebody doing some sort of maintenance on our facilities. And for the last 8 months, as of October of last year, we've dedicated 2 of the streets division employees to strictly handling facilities issues. And one of those employees we've been paying out of class as an interim lead. We've been able to utilize ViewWorks since May of 2023 to track our maintenance efforts and our current needs. And we've also procured tools and equipment to optimize operations. And one of those pieces of equipment is the electric van that we are currently upfitting with storage bins, workbenches. This is a dedicated facilities van. This will be used for nothing else other than addressing facilities issues. So this will be a mobile working shop for them. They will have just about every tool and supplies needed. So whatever work is handed to them, they should be able to go directly to that facility and handle the needs. Now, there will be times where they'll have to go and run to get parts depending on what the issue is, but for the most part, with this van set up, they should be able to handle just about everything. So solution alternatives and analysis. We came up with 3 different scenarios to try to combat the issues that we're facing as far as getting the work done. Excuse me. And one of those is, we landed on 1, but I'll go through all 3. The first alternative is a full service city division. And that one met majority of our needs, but in the long run, the low cost, less than 100,000 for the first year didn't meet it, and financial flexibility. And what we mean by financial flexibility is that in the event that we find ourselves in an economic downturn, if we haven't staffed appropriately, meaning if we've overstaffed, will we end up in a position to having to lay those newer employees off? And that was just something we didn't want to get ourselves into. Second alternative was contracting only, whether it be a long list of various on-call contracts, depending on the type of work needed, or working through a property management company. The only scenario where it really worked out for us, if we did find ourselves in a downturn, is that it's easier to sever ties with a contractor than it is with a full-time employee. The 24-hour response, if we could find a contractor that was willing to do that, we were going to pay a premium for it. So it just didn't meet the financial needs, nor did they have the system knowledge. So even if they did come out in the middle of the night to address whatever issue we had, they don't know what exactly the equipment is that we have in stock. So that one didn't really seem to pan out for us. But alternative 3, the hybrid approach, seemed to check all the boxes. And with the hybrid approach, that would be a dedicated facilities position while still utilizing contract services. And as far as the contract services are considered, or what we're considering, is anything larger or time consuming that the staff wouldn't be able to address right away. This would be roof replacements, painting of the exterior of the buildings, window replacements, HVAC replacements, major electrical issues that we have, seal coating for parking lots or overlays for the parking lots. Those things, and landscaping, would be things that we'd end up wanting to contract out. And this approach seemed to meet our needs. So with that, our proposed next steps. We would like to, 1, solve the acute need for the facility services. We want to create a public works facilities division in 2024, offer a competitive internal promotions for 2 current employees who are in what we consider now the streets and facilities division, dedicate them strictly to facilities, and promote them each 1 lead and 1 supervisor position. Continue to track maintenance work and optimize our operations, and again, continue to utilize contractors as needed. Second, plan for the future. We want to conduct a facilities assessment to understand the condition of the city's assets. Some of the stuff, particularly the newest facility that we purchased, we don't know where they're at in their lifespan. So we can't really plan for replacements. We want to have somebody come in and go through all of our facilities and look at what we have and put a number to it as far as where it's at. How many years left do we have before we have to start thinking about replacing all the heat pumps at the PD or City Hall? We'd like to hire in 2025 an additional facilities maintenance worker to help with the increased demand of work orders that are coming in. And then develop a facility budget so we can track ongoing costs and plan for those future replacements of the aging infrastructure. Budget impacts. So as of right now, the offset of the 2024 costs by holding open the inventory control specialist, which was a budgeted position for this year, combined with 2024 salary savings. So we have not filled the inventory control specialist position, and we currently have 2 crew worker positions open that we hope to have filled by the middle of next month. So at the top, with salary savings with benefits for those 3 positions, the total comes to just over $130,000. If we were to take the 2 senior maintenance workers, the current workers that we have now, promote them to maintenance lead and maintenance supervisor, if it was approved by council, And at best, we would be able to implement that by, I believe, mid-July. So the remaining 5.5 months of the year, the cost of that would come to about $22,000. Now, if we don't want to do that this year, we would propose in 2025 the same thing with the addition of the added FTE, the maintenance crew worker with the CDL. And the right-hand box shows with the cost with benefits, the full year of what it would be, which all three combined would come to about $152,000. Are there any questions so far?
What kind of a maintenance on buildings would you think you'd need a CDL for?
We wouldn't. I think we keep that there if they wanted to be on the on-call list. They would still be eligible for on-call. So currently, anybody who's on call has a CDL. So they can utilize any piece of equipment, mainly the sweeper, the Vector, or any of our larger dump trucks. So with that, I would ask if anybody else has any further questions.
Help me understand the rationale for needing a facilities division versus just moving forward with with dedicating 2 staff to solely work on facilities. What's the benefit of moving to a division?
It's a great question. As it stands right now, I don't think we can keep going the way we're going with the way the organizational chart works out, that the current supervisor who's overseeing the streets and facilities, he has 8 full-time employees and 2 seasonals, which equates to 10. We try to keep it 6 to 7 as far as span of control is concerned. And he is very overloaded with the demand of streets and what I just showed you, the amount of work that's coming in with the facility. So creating the lead and the supervisor position would free up so he could focus strictly on streets. He would be more efficient in being able to just focus on the street stuff. And then we would have a supervisor who would just focus on the facility side of things. So if we were to break those 2 up, that would essentially free up 4 positions. The 2 that I just referenced as far as if we promoted the lead and the supervisor, and then our current facilities maintenance techs who are responsible for just the janitorial services, those would fall under the maintenance division also.
Got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are the large amount of work orders at City Hall, is that the new City Hall or this facility over here?
That's this current one. So I can go back. And I don't believe this is I think we actually now, before I ran these numbers, our new City Hall actually does have 1 work order request.
Ready?
Already, yes.
But you've got 202 work orders over at that building over there. Huh?
Yes. That was for 2023.
Do
And
you-
that can range from anything from we need new desks built, or we need painting done, or hey, it's too cold in here.
We're moving cubicles.
Wasn't a lot of that supposed to be addressed by having a new city hall? I thought that was part of it, was getting everyone out of that building that's plagued by all these issues.
I'm just stating that those 202 those are some of the requests that are coming now.
A work request could be move a desk.
Yeah,
So it's,
I guess to me, that's different than paint the building.
Put up the mayor's new whiteboard. Yeah, do it himself. So
4 screws.
And to give a little more context, again, we've been paying the one streets worker out of class pay for a long time now. And we've had to do that because of the type of work they're doing. And the one example I'll give you is the transfer switch that went out at the police department. we had to bring somebody in, but a scope of work had to be put together, and that person did that work, which is way outside of general maintenance person's scope of responsibility. So that's why we're in a situation where we need to promote somebody to be able to do that work and contract it out when needed, plus to supervise the work, and their area of expertise is way beyond a general maintenance worker.
Guess for me, part of it, if you can go back a couple slides to we are planning for the future. Yeah, so just, I guess just for me, the thing that struck me is a couple of points in that plan for the future are things that I would like to know, you know, before we start making plans for a facilities department or not. I mean, you know, if it turns out there's a ton of stuff all over the city that's going to go bad and we're going to need to staff up to deal with that, great. If it's not that bad, you know, that those are the type of things I would want to know ahead of time, personally.
Okay. That was my exact thought process. It seemed like two should be one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know the condition of the facilities, how do you plan accordingly? It just, and then develop a budget. How do you develop a budget when you don't know what you're budgeting for? It's like saying, hey, I want to do a remodel, but I don't know if I need to replace the plumbing in my house and the wiring, electrical wiring, or if I just need to replace some light fixtures. You know, I mean, there's a really broad range. And so I would like to see something more of an analysis similar to what we did with the vehicles. You know, the similar thing for the actual facility themselves, except with the exception of that building over there. I don't want an analysis of that because it's going away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You have enough direction?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Curtis. Next item, ordinance 1180 fireworks. Greg.
All right, 1180 is back. It prohibits all fireworks, possession, use, discharge on all city property. So, and in the park section, we've had a provision at Sarah's request that as in their event permitting process and so forth, she may permit some use of either fireworks or primarily different types of projectiles for different types of probably novelty games or competitions like axe throwing or whatever. I
Wait.
think that was the example she gave.
So I just want to make sure we have the right version because I'm seeing a line here that consumer fireworks are allowed on certain days on the public right of way.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so that city property is accepted.
Right. We
Okay.
did not want to
Right.
prohibit the transporting of consumer fireworks through town
Okay.
during the statutory period around the 4th of July. So that's an exception.
Okay.
But it's not for illegal fireworks. So
And it's just the possession, it's not the use of.
yes,
Okay.
So that's only on the 4th of July?
right. It's that what?
So
10-day
fireworks
period.
stands could be open 3 days before, and if someone goes and buys them and takes them home?
No, it's that I don't have my dates here. It's
For that
that,
too,
yeah.
great. Don't have to talk about it anymore. Just want to make sure that whenever the stands can open, people can take them.
yeah, yeah,
Great.
yeah.
All dates within the ordinance.
Great.
Yep.
I appreciate this because I think it captures well what we discussed at the council retreat. And I look forward to seeing it move forward.
What would be the next steps and the timeline?
Well, it's adoption. And since it doesn't alter any of the statutory restrictions, it can be effective immediately.
Great.
Would we have an opportunity for public I guess there would be just the public comment at the meeting where it was on the agenda versus like a public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you folks, whether you want, there's not a public hearing isn't required.
Mhm.
If you wanted to have a formal public hearing where you see public comment, you certainly could do that.
I think I appreciate where Angie's coming from. I think as far as wanting to respect public input, I guess for me, where I see this is more of like, it's being a good steward of our city assets and resources. And so I don't know what kind of input would say, hey, I want to be able to blow off fireworks, in city parks. I'd have a hard time supporting that.
You just have to watch your timeline, if you want to get this in effect before the 4th of July holiday period. We'll probably need to get this enacted in June. By the first part of June.
I would support having it on the agenda at the next available council meeting as as an action item.
I'm a little confused because I thought fireworks were banned in city parks in the first place. Is that not correct?
Well, they are in city parks.
So we're expanding that.
So
to-
we're expanding that and we're adding the prohibition on possession, which is probably the key element that's being added here that enables enforcement, much easier enforcement of the ordinance than dealing with the, yes, yes. If someone is seen with the goods, they can be immediately dealt with. Doesn't belong here. No one needs to wait around to see if they're going to use them or not.
I would appreciate and am curious to hear feedback from the rest of the council when this is on the agenda, if in the staff report, in layman's terms, there could be just a bulleted list of what this changes for the folks.
And I
Our
think
city.
if passed, we also do a social media
Mhm.
campaign. Advisor.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Just to make it really clear what's different. Should it pass?
All right, we can do this.
Can we put this on next week's agenda, the 28th? Or is that too soon?
No, I know Director Garso would like to have it done as soon as possible so that their department can start with signage and notifying. I think the sooner the better, just to get the word out.
Do you want it as a discussion item or as an
Action.
agenda?
Action item.
Action item.
Anything else on that? No, okay, so we're on schedule for the
Yes.
28th, I guess it is.
Council President, I know we're a couple minutes to 8 o'clock and I know that our last item needs at least 10 minutes, so.
Think you can do it in 2 minutes, Russ?
That's up to you. It's fine.
Well, not up to
I think
me,
it's
it's
gonna
up to-
take you a few more minutes and
How about 10 minutes? Is that just to
Want
cover
to make a
bases?
motion to extend 10 minutes
After 8 o'clock, 10 minutes?
to 8:10? Anybody?
I moved that we extend to no longer than 8:10.
Okay.
Okay, second, all that good stuff. You need to announce that or
Who was the second?
I was.
Okay. And then just a vote.
All those in favor of extending our meeting to no later than 8:10 PM?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay, Russ?
Okay, thank you again, council. So we will leave on a more lighthearted note. Great job tonight, council. Wow, what a lot of topics to slog through. So the mayor had asked a while ago that we start thinking about a city flag. And we'll be heading into the Association of Washington Cities meetings coming up in June, and there will be a flag parade. And so it's another opportunity for the city to really move its branding efforts forward. So when the mayor had suggested this, worked on some internal designs first, and then we hired a consultant to help refine some of those designs and maybe present some new options. And so I had included some of those first options in your packet, and I'm going to show the refined options on the screen in just a moment. But as I show those to you, I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. So as you think about designs of flags, some of the things you should consider is the simplicity. Does it have a good design? Is it easy to recognize? Is it meaningful? So do some of the symbols on the flag have resonance to the greater community? It probably should have a limited color palette, no more than 3 colors. And one of the things that you'll see that all of our flags break this rule, but to avoid lettering or putting seals on the flag. And then does it have a unique design? And with all of that said, these principles, they provide guidance, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't use creativity as you put forward a flag. Again, does it resonate with you visually, and does it address the values or the symbols of your community? So with that, I'm going to show you 4 potential flag options. And I will say, going down this list and based on some informal polling with staff, we do have a recommendation, but want to share those with you first. Okay. So this is option 1. This is the one that staff had developed internally. And again, we tried to look at our beautification plan and district icons we had assigned and try to put those out in sort of an interesting way. And this is the refinement that came back from our consultant. There you go. Okay, option 2, very similar. It just changes the color palette to a dark blue instead of white, and then adds the brown bar. Option 3, again, that takes all of our district icons and makes a play on our logo with the lake represented in the bottom, and then our slogan goes around the top of that. And then they came back with an alternate version of that as well, that just added that additional bar around the top of the circle. So again, based on sort of the principles that I just shared with you and the informal polling, a lot of the staff really resonated with option 3. Option 4, we've just seen today, but again, it's sort of a play on that. But just wanted to get some brief feedback from the council if any of these design options jumped out to you. And again, it gives us a great opportunity to move our branding forward. We can use these things at events like Aquafest. They can be handed out to community members or maybe to our delegates at the national or state level. And again, just something we can display in all of our buildings and really, again, push our brand forward. So looking for council's direction on a couple of these designs, and I'll run back to the beginning. We can discuss individually, or you just want to throw out your preferences.
On option number 3, would you include putting the word Lake Stevens on that?
We could certainly request that the designer incorporate the city's name. Yeah.
Maybe in the blue along the light blue along the bottom.
Yeah, it just seems we've got a flag that doesn't, one community around the lake. Well, what's that? Lake Washington?
Russ, I thought there was in the email that, wasn't there an email on it this morning? I thought there was another one that I actually liked. Go to 4, maybe that was it. Yeah, maybe that was it, but I think we need to have Lake Stevens somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. 3 is my choice of preference if they're able to incorporate our city name. And I agree with what's been said about keeping it at the bottom would be somewhere on the bottom would be appropriate to have that.
Okay, is there general consensus with that?
I would choose 3, but I don't like the brown writing, but I don't care that much. And I like the idea of Lake Stevens.
Well, the brown is consistent with our signage that we have in the city. It's those colors are the ones that are like on the signs you're seeing around town.
Branding.
So I mean,
Same with our branding.
I'm not a big fan of the brown either, but I mean, it's
All right, I'm gonna mix up. I like 4, but with the caveat that I'm imagining this thing sitting outside in all kinds of weather all year round, and I feel like the white one might start to look a little dirty and worn faster than the dark blue. So I don't know if it's possible to do something like 4 or 3 in a dark blue. Because if you've got, that's why I like 4, because then you've got the light blue around the logo to break it up, but you can still make the background a darker color. That's my thought.
And I don't know that we're actually planning on displaying these outside. They certainly could be, but I think most of the.
Fake flag.
Why do we have to
See
like?
inside,
outside?
in these kind of venues, but
So you wouldn't see at the new city hall, we put up 3 flagpoles.
we absolutely could. Yeah.
So one of the thoughts, just so you guys know my corny thoughts on this. Not corny, but I think it's a good idea.
No, it's corny.
We're not putting your picture on the.
No, no picture of me whatsoever. I wanted to do battle streamers.
That's next year.
APWA accreditation streamers. Just give them a little,
It is.
little accolade.
You're right the first time. It's the same.
What is a battle streamer? Like
Do it.
off the bottom or on the flag?
So if you don't know what a battle streamer is, if you look at like a military flag,
Streamer.
a unit flag, they'll have the streamers that hang off the side, Battle of Iwo Jima or whatever.
Like a physical stream.
Yeah. it's a
Okay,
blue streamer.
okay.
Comes off the top of the pole on the stream.
Do we all get
APW.
challenge coins as council members with this logo on it that we can hand out?
Council Member of the Year award.
that's
So
only.
we'll tackle the mayor's idea at another meeting, but if I can just circle back, if there's sort of a head nod for option 3 or an option 4 with the addition of Lake Stevens on the bottom. So option 3, raise your hand. Move back to 3.
I also want to go with the dark blue, but
That's a whole, yeah.
Reminds me of the retreat.
Okay,
of
so
Washington
option
State.
3, I saw about,
I think it was everyone but me.
We raised our hand once.
okay, 4.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll call that consensus and we'll add Lake Stevens to the bottom of this. Thank you.
And please make the font of Lake Stevens bigger than what's,
What? 6 months.
Okay,
so you can see it.
Right.
okay.
Yeah.